Hello, humans. Welcome to the M-Word podcast brought to you by Martin. That's me.
And Matt.
That's him. Today we're joined by Percy. Hello, Percy.
Yeah, very good, thank you. Very good.
I was thinking about the name Percy actually a while ago. So through, obviously I'm a generation above you, I hate to say it, but...
Maybe more than one generation,
yeah,
Mark.
you might be right. You could be right. And... I end the podcast too. It's insults like that. No. And back at how names go through cycles, and Percy is like, when I was a kid, Percy was just an old man's name.
Yeah.
And obviously it's now a cool name to have, isn't it?
I don't know if it's a cool name, Martin. It's a name that stands out, I think.
Yeah,
People
I
seem
think
to
it
remember
is.
it.
Yeah, and I think like you're probably from the Bible, aren't you, with Matthew and John, and my name's pretty dull as well. But then I was thinking about my middle name, which has never been in a cycle.
Yeah.
It's just Derek.
Yeah, that is not in any form of cycle,
No offense
is
to
it?
any Dereks. I can't see a cycle name where that comes and goes. And
I don't know any people my age called Derek, I can't lie.
No.
Do you know anyone your age called Derek?
I swear it was my old man's name, so that's where it comes from. But yeah, I can't see that coming in like the Percy cycle or George cycle or
I
whatever.
don't think Percy's in a cycle, Mark.
Oh, I do, yeah.
Do you? Do you know anyone else called Percy?
Yeah, I think like if people have kids today, if you had a kid today and called it Percy, it'd be like cool name. If you had a kid today, no offense. If you called it John, no offense to people, it's a bit like flat,
They
isn't
like
it?
that name.
Yeah,
They
no,
like
it's
the
just
name
like flat.
John.
Yeah, I mean maybe John's not great, but
Depends if you want someone to have
Derek. You had a
personality.
baby today called Derek.
Everyone was like, why are you calling your baby Derek?
Exactly, yeah.
Very
Where
true.
Percy's all
Very
right.
true.
Yeah.
I think that is quite... I never expected that.
So anyway, we're going to get to know you a little bit. Obviously, you've got a quiet presence on the Isle of Man now. Good or bad, depending on...
How you know me.
yeah,
I
exactly, yeah. But we don't want to talk about the dark side of you.
No,
Percy.
there's no dark side.
No, I know. I'm only messing. So perhaps just get a bit of background to you and your background. So I know you're Southerner, I assume, on the basis you're down there and your family have a farm. But yeah, just give us a bit of your backstory.
Big
The
time.
good stuff.
Yeah, but all it's all good stuff. I haven't done any bad stuff. I would say that the backstory about me...
Where did you go to school?
Where did I go to school? So I went to school at Arbury,
Right.
Arbury Primary School in Ballabeg there. I think that's one of the best primary schools on the Isle of Man, or certainly was at the time. It was small, the class sizes weren't too big. Everyone sort of got their part of the teacher, if that made sense. Everyone sort of could do what they felt was comfortable. And then from Arbury School, played lots of sports there. Tried to do everything. Just typical young lad. Wasn't really suited to the classroom, if that makes sense. I was someone who'd rather be outside with sticks and whacking them against trees, really, or picking pine cones, anything like that, really. And then...
And in those early years, you obviously family on a farm, you working on the farm as
Yeah,
well.
I was helping my mum, so my mum's got the horse riding school in Ballabeg there. It's more of a small holding than the farm. We grew a little bit of crops, but it was more just for personal enjoyment of growing them. My uncle, he has part of it as well, so he used to grow crops a field or two, and then my mum would graze the horses on the rest of it. So it was really enjoyable, and I felt like the upbringing that I had was I feel very fortunate for that, being outside as a child, being able to roam around a bit of space. I wasn't stuck in a garden. And for someone like me who's hyperactive and definitely of the more coiled spring side, it was definitely something that I thought without that maybe things might have been different, because I had an outlet. I could go ride my bike around wherever I wanted to, kick a ball at a wall, whatever. And then, so that was sort of my... till about 11, and then obviously moved up to Castle Rushen. Castle Rushen was an experience, I would say. It's high school is a scary thing for children, isn't it? My little brother's now 15, he's in year 10, and it's interesting sort of watching him go down the same route, and I can recall the feelings that he's going through very well. Obviously, he's 7 years younger than me. This was not that long ago that I was in year 10. And it's,
what are those fears?
I would say going through school, you're growing up, aren't you? You're trying to work things out. You're trying to learn. And people at schools, sometimes, depending on what school and depending on the environment, I think that something that I've certainly learned was they don't cherish failure enough, because sometimes you learn the most when you fail. And by failing, you can know why that's how it goes wrong. Like, what can we adjust and learn from it? I sometimes feel like young children at the moment are getting knocked down for failing.
Okay.
And I think that could maybe be improved, and it boosts their confidence. So maybe say, right, you know now that was the issue, or that's where you went wrong. How can we maybe learn from that rather than failure? Call it learning.
So being again one generation older,
just the one.
Just the one. I suppose as an observer of the younger generation that we live in, and I find this quite ironic because we talk about young generation, our generation creators, so we can't be critical of it because whatever's going on here is sort of about there's conversations about snowflake generations. Like, don't point at the youngsters. We created it, so don't. Well, I haven't got kids, so it's everyone else created it.
Yeah.
But they talk at schools and there's no losers. Everyone gets a medal. I don't know. Does that still go on? And what you talk about there is people not winning and failing, might be second, third, fourth, and that's okay because that's just, like you say, part of life, isn't it?
Yeah, man. I think getting a medal for everything, just for taking part, does that really drive people to be successful because they feel like they've achieved as much as they can achieve? Okay, that's fine. Some people don't want to strive for that winner's spot or for that second or third, which is totally fine. But there is people who want to push forward and want to do well. So if everyone's getting a medal, they think, oh, well, why do I bother pushing for the best? You've got to sort of look at it from the opinion of maybe...
So is that the type of thing that's going on?
Yeah, I would say that. It's confidence. Kids need confidence, man. We're living in a world where they're exposed to so much... They're having to mature very quickly from what they're seeing on social media and seeing on things. It's not the same world that you lived in one generation ago. They're seeing lots of different things, and I was on the back end of it. I got a phone when I was year 7, so 11 or 12. These kids have had it since they were born. They see a lot. They need confidence to believe in themselves.
So do you struggle with confidence when you were at school?
No, personally. I mean, back to where we were going with that conversation, I'd say that you got to high school, I wasn't someone who was overly intelligent. I got through it. I could do what they asked me to do, but I wasn't an A-star student. I wasn't a complete failure. I was more somebody who just liked to get involved. I was friends with everyone. Didn't really find a group.
Right.
I'd say I was friends with either the sporty lads one day, or the next day I was in doing chess club, or in the library, or playing cards. It wasn't really the type of guy to just be in a clique. I just felt a little bit different from the rest, if that makes sense. I would say couldn't find my thing at school. So just where I've obviously liked the rugby, like doing bits of athletics or whatever, throwing a shot put or a discus, but really I didn't really start to work things out until I left school, I would say.
Right.
And got through the GCSE period, which is tricky for every child. And I mean, you guys obviously know people who are doing that or have done that, and it's a period that either makes you or breaks you. And you've got to, looking back, I would say that I approached it very laid back. I wasn't really that bothered. Didn't think that exams mattered. I was somebody who was like, oh, well, I'm going to go out and work on the farm or do whatever anyway, so I'm never going to use any of this. And looking back, I mean, what? Did it really affect me? I don't think I've used algebra since I left school. Well, since I left college. And then, so I left school with okay grades. And then went on to do engineering for 2 years at college. And that was a strange time in my life. It didn't really fit in there either.
Right.
Where did the engineering come from? What took you down that path?
My uncle's an agricultural mechanic, so he's got tractors. He's an agricultural contractor, actually, so he goes out and does people's farm work for them with his machinery. So I was like, I quite like the tractors. Always sat in with them from a young age, and I thought, well, why don't I go give that a bash? He was like, well, go down and give it a go, and you can help out and give me a hand when you spare time. And then got to engineering, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, really.
What did you think it should be, and what was it?
I would say that I thought it was going to be more mechanic, like more hands-on-y, if that makes sense. It turned out that it was very computery, very mathematical, very scientific. There was a lot of classroom work. I thought we were just going to be making things.
Okay.
We probably spent 3 hours a week actually making things with our hands, and the rest of it was on machines, like lathes, milling machines. And in the first year, it was manual lathe and milling machines. And then the second year, it was CNC machines, which basically you just type into computers. And mate, I hate computers. Right. I'm not a computer person, and I got through it again, just dragged my ass through it. But
and was it a 2-year course?
2-year course, full time. So I was there 4.5 days a week.
Isle of Man College.
Isle of Man College. I like what the Isle of Man College are doing. 100% think that they're doing something that's great. I would just say that, struggled again to find where I fit in, really, to be honest, and didn't really know who I was.
Right.
I just, obviously, when I was up to the age of about 15, I rode horses like loads, and then I stopped doing that, and I didn't really have another purpose, if that makes sense. Rode bicycles and horses from very young age. Stopped bicycles when I was 11 or 12. I obviously raced with Dot for years, and then went down the route of decided to focus on horse riding and rugby at school. Stopped the horses, and then all I had left was the rugby, really.
All right.
And that's
quite interesting. You mentioned the word purpose. We were talking before we started, didn't we, in the house about speaking to sports people we've spoken to, and I see. In fairness, I see it outside of sport as well. But I won't name names, but I see a lot of examples of people who, when you kind of lose purpose, it doesn't have to be sport, does it? Whatever that purpose is, that's where the mental games kind of start because they haven't got the purpose and
100%.
Finding a niche, I guess, or whatever that might be. Yeah.
I think it's quite interesting you just talk about purpose there at that such a young age as well, because you say that time where you're just trying to find out what. It's really, if anything, it is the time to find out what it is again, who you are, what you like, and things like that, and for you to be looking back talking about that purpose already. Interesting.
I turned 22 today, so I'm not that. I'm not an old person, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's something that comes to people my age often and looks back and sort of reflects on that period. But I do reflect quite hard on that, and I think that purpose can drive you to sort of have a meaning and not just float around. And that's what purpose is, what makes you successful, I think. And I don't know, I'm nowhere near the success that I want to get at yet, but I would say that by having a purpose, you can get to where you want to go much easier than just floating around like a leaf and just going where the wind blows you.
I think the point you're making, Matt, isn't it, that at 22, I can only speak for myself, but I couldn't spell purpose, let alone think about it and figure it out. So to even be, if I had my time again, it would be to have more conversations, probably like you maybe have in your own head at a younger age, to go, what am I doing, where am I going, what's the plan here, without it being super structured, obviously, ultimately having some purpose.
Definitely.
So you leave college.
Then life really started to begin, really. I left college and...
To be what, about 18?
17, 18. Yeah, a whole 3 years ago. I mean, I've been on a bit of a whirlwind, really. I would say that, left college and I would say sort of still didn't really have a purpose. Worked on some farms for a bit. Worked quite a lot for my uncle driving tractors. I did enjoy that, but it was very solitary, very by yourself all day. Some people deal with it, and I have many, many farming friends, and I mean, I really respect what they do, and I tried my best to do it. I think that sitting down all day is something that I struggle to do. I like to be outside doing things, or a bit more hands-on, a bit more movie. So, each to their own. I still help my uncle every now and then when he needs a hand with the tractors. But at 18, after leaving college, obviously got sick of it being there, to be honest. Absolutely sick of it. So I was like, phone's ringing here, let me just turn that off. I was absolutely sick of it, really. Being in education, I think.
Yeah.
It was like, I need to get away from here.
Yeah, I'm not an education person either.
No, I need to get out. I need to get out of here and sort of do my own thing, be free. So I tried many different things. Obviously did the typical Isle of Man thing. I think if you don't go to uni, you can sometimes just end up getting on the piss every weekend.
Yeah.
Realistically, I'm not scared to admit that that's what I did. I was out every weekend drinking with my mates. I mean, I don't have anything against people if they want to do that. But looking back those whole 3 years ago, you're not saving any money. You're living week to week. And you don't really... I think that you have to work that out for yourself. I don't think anyone can help you there, really. Your parents can guide you. My mum and stepfather and uncle and all did a great job of trying to guide me. But I would say I probably pushed back a little bit.
Right. Okay.
If that made sense. I was a bit like, well, I'm going to work this out for myself.
Better.
Yeah, learn from my own issues, and that's something I've certainly tried to change more now. Right. I try to sort of listen to people and take on board. And
what you like when you've had a drink? Are you a lover?
Not great, mate.
How you know?
Not great. And I worked out very quickly. Well, not very quickly, actually. I worked out after coming back from being away that it's not something that... It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'll never have a drink again. You know what I mean? If it's an occasion, maybe I'll have a few beers or something, but... Yeah, it's Isle of Man, living on the Isle of Man, because it's an island, people say there's nothing else to do other than go out with your mates. You can get stuck in a rut really quickly because your friendship group, who's majority your age, your year at school or year above, year below, everyone's out every weekend and you feel like you're getting a bit of FOMO being here, being a young fella. That's how people feel these days, I think, personally. They're living for the weekend.
Did you start to, I'm sure that those mates that you went out with, do you have to not push them away, but give them more of a wide berth to get out of that routine, do you think? Or is it just maturity that everyone just moves on?
That's a tricky question. I would say that...
And that's not being critical of them. It's just...
I would say that maybe I've had to make, since I came back from travelling, which is a whole different subject altogether, but we'll get there, I'm sure. Unfortunately, maybe, I feel like I don't really socialise with the same people that I once did. I'd say that I'm going through a weird time, which is where I don't have loads of friends because I'm sort of in between. I'm floating in the middle, if that makes sense. I haven't found a sort of people who align with me exactly, and a new friendship group, if you want to call it that. I've never really had one anyway, but a new group of pals, or still in contact with my old friends. But I would say that I just don't put myself in the situation to be tempted to do the old sort of situations. And I mean, it's not something that young people my age really do, so I understand that. That's totally fine as well. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. So let's talk a little bit about the travelling. I think it was New Zealand, did I read somewhere? What prompted you to go? Was it to get, you obviously mentioned earlier about not going to uni. Was that thinking in the process, or was it you kind of just needed to tell us rather than me filling in the gaps?
Yeah, I would say that uni wasn't really a thought, to be honest. I was obviously worked on a few farms, worked for a gentleman doing more building sort of side of things. So I was building agricultural sheds on farms and things, and sort of got a bit sick of that. Obviously worked for my uncle, and I was a bit like, well, not doing much here. Always wanted to get away. Always wanted to go travelling and do farming or something like that. And then, so taking it back a little bit, I joined Douglas Rugby Club after being at Nomads Rugby Club for a period of time when I left school. So you can't play senior rugby till you're 17 over here, anywhere in the UK, I think, and further afield. So at 16, I left school, obviously started college, and then had a whole year of doing nothing, basically. Didn't do any form of rugby, didn't do any form of sports. And then joined rugby, fell in love with rugby, did once a week training. Obviously Nomads were a great social club, great laugh on the beers. It was right up my street at that period. And then something changed. Phil Kringle is a great sportsman who's been away and played professional rugby at a very good level, and he came back from his professional rugby career, and I'd say he was a big factor in, really. I sort of seen him obviously lives up the road in Ballabeg. Came back and he was like, well, why don't you come and join Douglas Rugby Club? I'm going to be the coach, and we'll see what we can do with you, because I enjoyed playing for Nomads, but just sort of did it as a bit of fun, really. And went there and sort of got my purpose back a bit. That was the strike. That's when something clicked in me then. Obviously, there was still loads of beers involved, loads of drink, because it's a rugby club, which is great for rugby social. I'd suggest any young lad who's wanting to get out there and sort of have some fun and have a laugh and feel it in a safe environment, a rugby club is certainly the place for the job, because they look after you. You're not just going out with a group of mates who are all your same age who let you loose. These rugby lads, we're all having fun, but if you step out of line, they'll bring you back in, if that makes sense. And that was when things changed for me, I think. I talk about this like it was 40 years ago, but things genuinely did start to change looking back. I sort of found my purpose, and I was like, right, well, I could go away and play rugby in New Zealand. Rugby's huge there. Let's go. Maybe I need. So then I started hitting the gym. And I was like, right, oh God, I'm getting into the gym now. This is serious. I'd always called the gym. I always thought the gym was for a bunch of homos, really. I thought, what's all this about? Do you know what I mean? I was like, what the hell's going on here? So then I got into the gym, and I was like, starting to enjoy this. Then I was playing rugby, and then I was eating chicken and rice every day. And then I was like, oh my goodness me. And then I was on a full-blown diet pretty much for a while, because my stepfather's very into fitness, so he'd made me a little diet up, and I was like, right, okay. Look at me, I was like, where's this going? Playing rugby, training twice a week, going away every weekend, playing with Douglas. I'm like, right, I've got my mojo back here. Things are starting to look up here. So then I played that season.
Where'd you play?
At Douglas, so...
No position?
Oh, number 7, so a flanker, or second row, either or, number 7, 6, 5 or 4. And I was like, well, end of the season, I joined at Christmas, so I played the back end of the season. Really enjoying this. This is really good. And then I was like, right, I'm 19, started saving a bit of money. I was like, okay, things are looking good. And got through the off season, kept hitting the gym. Life was different, starting to change. Still out on beer, still enjoying life, still socialising, still hanging out with my mates as well as a rugby team. And I was a bit of a loose cannon, I would say. Definitely someone who enjoyed the beers at the rugby club and thoroughly threw myself into it. But the fitness was there from that it started. And comes the start of the pre-season, got straight into that. I was like, right, we're on here. And then this lad who'd played in the season before, he'd went home back to New Zealand, who Douglas had brought in, and he came back, and I'd got pretty friendly with him. He was quite a bit older than me, so he was not quite a bit, but 26, 27, 26, I think. And he was like, well, sat around the bar one day. He was like, well, why don't you just come back to New Zealand with me? I was like, ooh, now I think, now we're talking. Do you know what? Something just clicked, and then next minute I was like, right, I'm going to New Zealand. Going back with him. Come March, I'm out of here.
Yeah, right.
Next minute, boom, look out, I'm there.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was just like, well, what's gone on here? My life just took a complete turn. Looking back at the time, it was just like, well, it's a whirlwind.
Yeah, right.
And then I ended up there at 19.
And did your family very much support you going?
They knew I needed a change, man.
Okay,
they knew I needed to get away from the Isle of Man and get away from, not the negative circle, but get away of being in the island life and see a bit more of the world.
Okay.
By myself, I'd been out and travelled and done stuff with family, been to Africa on a safari, been to America, done that sort of thing with my family, which I'm very grateful for. But yeah, I think I just needed a change.
Yeah, right.
What during that time though, just the way you've just spoken about rugby and that, what was it that like brought you to it, and in the way that you've just spoken there, and talk about that purpose and constantly wanting to play, train, and that shift there, and that was that because rugby was kind of channeling all this, let's say, that energy, that not sitting down, or when you just listening to you there when you talk about that rugby, that's kind of like whether right or wrong, that flipping, that mindset from what I can hear there, and it's just kind of what you feel brought that on.
I would say it's probably felt like it was somewhere I belonged, if that made sense. I've been in Young Farmers for a long time. Well, all my life doing concerts at the Gaiety Theatre, so I had the confidence to go in and meet new people and being out on stage and talking. Young Farmers is another great place for socialising, but I would say I sort of felt like I was welcome there, if that makes sense. I sort of felt like I was, okay, they've accepted me into the group. I was on the outskirts trying to go somewhere new, and you find where you are on the pecking order, especially as a young lad. You're not really aware of that, but you find them where you belong. You then, if you cross out a line, okay, these lads do care about you on and off the pitch. You can go out on a night out in Douglas, and you know that they're going to say, listen, Percy, this isn't how we act here.
Yeah, right.
We can, we're going to be stupid and have a laugh, but then there's a line, okay, right. Just rein it in, have a little bit of respect maybe, and think about who we are. And you've got the tie on. Do you really want everyone? You're representing Douglas here. Yeah. You can't go out and be a complete lunatic. Obviously, we still did silly things, but it was more. Yeah, you sort of felt welcome there, I think, and certainly Phil Kringle being a huge part of that. I would say I looked up to Phil, and you'll know that now. Like if he does listen to this, I do give him a little bit of credit for that, I think.
Bit of a fatherly type figure.
Yeah, a bit of a big brother. I didn't have a big brother. I've got I've got a couple of big sisters and things like that. So, yeah, big brother to sort of say, stop being a knobhead. Wind your bloody neck in. You know what I mean? There's no point going out fighting and being an idiot. Wind your neck in. You know what I mean? And transfer that anger or whatever, that resentment out onto the field instead.
And what did, when Percy landed in New Zealand, what did a big
worldwide look like? How long do you have it? We could get into some stuff. So, yeah.
So did you go there intention, just play a bit of rugby, travel around, chill out, or do you think I'll do a little bit of work? See, what was there a plan, or is it not much of a, which is fine?
Well,
bit of a wing it.
Yeah, it was a bit of a wing at me, really. Go play a bit of rugby, because that lad who played at Douglas, Brad, his name was, he was big into his rugby, and at the time he was like, come and play for my club and whatever. So I was like, okay. He's like, you can stay at mine till you find a job, like my family home. So I went there and joined his family home with Brad and his big sister and her fella and his two parents and the dog. Didn't meet any of them before. It sort of all came a bit apart. I thought, I've got a plan to get there. And next one, I was like, Okay. We went to Bali for 10 days before. We travelled around Bali for a bit. Had a skeet around some mopeds, just causing carnage there. Got to the year, I was like, right, okay, this is a real. This could be a bit of a pickle here. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, just stood there, just sat around the table.
Pulled my mate back with me.
Yeah, I was like, ooh. It's a 1.5-day trip to get back home. I'm gonna have to make this work. So I just had to make it work. It was bananas. Look, it was just crazy.
And did you start working straight away or find us? Did you ever feel pressure to get out of that house?
Ooh, I never felt. I think I put more pressure on myself.
Yeah, no, I meant that way, rather than them.
I would say they were very, very welcoming, and I still keep in touch with them now. They are like my parents from across the water, if that makes sense. I still look at them as a sort of family now. But I would say I put pressure on myself because I knew that I had to make sure that I made this work. I think obviously the option was always I could always come home. My family said, if you ever want to come home, come home.
Do you think it was the easier option to come home?
Yeah, man. Yeah, 100%. I think that I wouldn't, because didn't have a plan. I sat there 6 weeks, just sort of like, well, what am I doing here? I need to find a job. Okay, the rugby club, can they help me? And it turned out where I was living in New Zealand wasn't really a place where it was easy to find a job.
Right.
There's loads of farms, but I didn't really want to do farm because I knew that didn't quite work for me, if that made sense. So I was... Yeah, I don't know. Where do you want me to take this?
Whatever you want to talk about, you tell us.
Yeah, I could talk for hours about this.
Why?
Because I made so many memories there, man, and I had such a wild experience, and I'd never moved out of home, never lived away from home before. Went all the way out here with my mate and was like, oh, crap.
Right.
Might have made up a bit of bollocks.
Why crap? I was going to say, because, again, everything you said there, you very sociable, able to speak with, get confidence, speak with groups.
Yeah.
From here, it seems like there's what you get into like a natural stop of you're a bit deer in the headlights. What happens here?
Yes. Big time.
What then? What was your thought process then? Then as job, friends,
Yeah.
work, you know what? Like
it was definitely a deer in the headlights. Would be. It was more the fact of right. Got here, thought this was a great idea, and then reality hit me all of a sudden that maybe I haven't actually found anywhere to live. I haven't got any form of income. Haven't got a car, didn't think about that, because there's no buses, taxis, or anything like that in New Zealand, especially up in the rural area. We were an hour and a half north from Auckland. There was no taxis or anything like that, so you needed a car. So, okay, right, how can I get the money? So I had a little bit of obviously had a bit of savings. Got a car, okay, that was number one. Next thing is right, now I've got a car, I can get to work. At least I can get there. So I was like, right, I can start looking for work. So sort of began to make friends externally from the family because the rugby season hadn't started just yet there, because they start in about March-ish, the pre-season, February, March-ish. So things were sort of slowly moving. And then met this guy whose dad worked on a big sheep farm with like 60,000 sheep. I don't know, okay. Met this young fella, and he was like 28 or something. And he said, well, my dad's doing fencing out on this farm, purely fencing. I mean, have you done any before? Like, not really. Done a little bit, maybe. And he was like, well, why don't you go work for him? Go and give it a go. You've got nothing to lose. What have you got? I could have went and done a bit of building site work with my mate who brought me over there because he was a joiner. And I was like, right, I don't really fancy that. Okay, I'll go and work for this fella. So started there, this big, huge sheep farm, sheep station. There's cattle there as well, obviously. And first day, got there. Thought, I don't know what I'm in for here. Came away with all cuts on your hands because fencing out there is a pretty hardcore job. You wind and fence off all day. It's a very thing by yourself. Headphones on, driving the tractor, all sort of that sort of thing. And it was like, right. Okay, is this something that I really want to do here? Got home and tough that, and then I went again the next day. Like, right, I'm going to keep going at this now. It was crap. Could hardly hit a staple in, like to keep the fence up. I was like, right, just keep going. I can do it. And then the resilience started to come back. I was like, right, I'm in the habit of this now. And then the rugby club started to get involved. And they're like, right, well, we can sort you out with a gym membership. You go and training twice a week, start to play games on a Sunday. I was like, right, okay. Things are starting to pick up again. This is going to work. And that's where the determination of learning, failing, and moving forwards came from, I think. And that was the biggest thing. Having to do something, having to make it work, having to. Well, I mean, I could have just gave up and came home easily. It could have happened, but I wasn't traveling as in going around seeing places without a purpose. I was there to work, and I had to work. So then I started earning cash and like money, and I was like, right, okay, we're back. We're back. We're playing rugby. We're going to the gym every morning. We're going to work. We're making tea. Okay, that was for the first. That was like the back end 2 weeks, and then the rugby club was like, okay, there's the coach's family had a big dairy farm. Yeah, like we've got a house at the end of this lane, 3 mile lane. It's rough. It's made out of wood. No telly. So 7 sofas in the living room, kitchen, and 3 bedrooms. Like right out the way. I mean, it was probably 30 minutes to get to the rugby club, 15 minutes to get to the rugby, something like that. Like, right, we've got nothing else. The rent was cheap. I was like, we'll do it. Let's go out there. So then I started living out there by myself. Had a big ringy living in my roof. That was an absolute nightmare. So in the night time, it was like dead dark, and I'd be laying there, and you'd hear, like, what is going on here? And there's a big ringy climbing up the walls all around me. So I'm going to poison this bastard. So I was chucking poison up in the loft like anything. I was like, let's get this bastard. And there was a hose leaking outside. And apparently when ringies get poisoned, they'll go to water. I was like, I'm going to leave that leak going. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I might see him dead there. Like a week past. Chuck them up. This bastard better be eating this poison because they'll store it if they don't eat it. So must be eating it. Throw more poison there, and then eventually. Yeah, one morning, walked out the front door. I was like, yes, there he was, this big bugger lay down. And once he was out of the way, I'm terrified of them things, hate them. Once he was out of the way, I thought, result. Now I can relax. Okay, so the fencing went on for about 3-4 months. Things picked up. And then the farmer that I was living on this farm, he was like, well, why don't you come and work for us? Rather than you having to drive 50 minutes to work every morning to go to this big sheep farm, why don't you come and work for us on this dairy farm? I was like, okay, what do you want me to do? And they're like, well, you've been doing fencing, why don't you just fence for us? I was like, well, give it a go. And obviously I didn't have a boss, so I had the boss, and he was like, listen, I think I'm going to locate closer to where I live. So all right, go ahead. And then I ended up becoming my own boss there, basically, because the farmer said, if you see something that's broken, fix it. The farm that I lived on, at the end of the road, it was a 3 mile road, the farm was out there, that was 500 acres, and then about another 10-15 minute drive away was the main farm where all the family worked and all the cows were. They had 1,000 cows there, but this was where they kept their young stock. So I had my own little spot. I was happy as Larry. And then one of the lads from the rugby club on the Isle of Man came over to meet me over there. Okay. And then he moved in, and then there was 2 of us from the Isle of Man living in this spot, playing rugby over here, John Duttle, and we were like, this is quality. Living by ourselves, getting on the beers with the lads every weekend, coming back to us because we had a free house in the middle of nowhere. So we were throwing parties every now and again, having some crack, making really good lifelong friends. And it was. I mean, things just took off from there. And then, so I was fencing. They said, you go around and fix whatever. If you think a post needs to go in there, put a post in. We'll tell you where to fence. You do it how you feel is right. I didn't still really know what I was doing, but I just swung at it. Just thought, right, let's have a go. And then I failed a couple of times. They're like, listen, that's not really in the right place, that, mate. You're going to have to take it down, start again. I'm like, fucking hell. Right, okay, take it down, start again. Okay, now things are starting to work. I'm starting to get a bit more of a jig for it. Oh, this is good. You're doing well now. Ooh. Get in there. And then there was a young fella down the road, a Maori guy. Now, Maoris over there, they have their own sort of culture. They're very, very, what's the word? Very sort of passionate about who they are. And he wasn't working, so this house was maybe 200 yards the other side. So we're here, he's there, and this was at the end of the lane. That was the only person. And I didn't really know him. And he wasn't working. And he had a missus and a dog. And this was going to work. And I was like, listen, what are you up to? What are you doing? Do you want to fancy earning some cash? Because I go and ask the boss if you can come along and drive the tractor for me rather than having to drive it myself. Get a little thing going on you. I went over and asked the boss. He was like, does he know what he's doing? I was like, not really. He's like, are you willing to teach him? I can. This lad had nothing. His family, he was 17, lived by himself. He didn't have any belief, didn't have a purpose, didn't have a job. And then I was like, right, come and work with me then. So then I had not just me to worry about, I then had him to worry about because I was the one who went to the boss saying, can I help this guy out? And then I was like, oh my God, here we go again on that adventure of, was this really good? Was this really a good decision? Because then I'm trying to teach this guy as well as do it myself.
And kind of learning stuff.
And kind of learning on the job as well. And then that's when I think that I sort of grew up at that point. Because it wasn't just me I was fending for. I had responsibility.
It almost sounds in a short space of time where, having gone out there, you start to first have to fend for yourself. First experience of that, and then quite quickly have to look after someone else as well, basically.
Well, mate, you must know yourself that managing staff is tricky. It is tricky.
Yeah,
and obviously the boss was up the road, but he had nothing to do with it. It was right. If you want him to work for you and make things faster, he's your responsibility. If he doesn't turn up for work in the morning, that's on you.
Yeah, right. So can I go back to when you talked earlier about, and Matty was talking about the...
Oh, yeah, sorry, I went down a rabbit hole there.
No, not at all. I just want to talk about use the word resilience, which is stuff we've talked about quite a bit. Where do you think that came from for you to stick it out? Because obviously the easy option is to go, I'm going home, F it, I'm going home. Where do you think that's from doing the sport? Do you think it's just, where do you think? Stubbornness?
Yeah, half of it would be crookedness, I would say.
Crookedness?
Yeah, I don't like being beaten.
Oh, okay.
I always hated losing. I hate losing.
Why is coming home early losing?
Because I hadn't went out there to come home again.
Right.
I wouldn't have been happy with it myself, and I didn't really realise that I had that dog in me, really, in the sense of I'm going to make this work. And I would say that being around, like, all my family are business owners. My mum runs a business, uncle runs a business. I've always been around people who'd done stuff for themselves. I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what. So I was like, right. I think that's where it came from. And then by building the resilience up in the gym, I knew that I had discipline. Discipline is half of it, I think, because you can have motivation all day, every day. You can be and then all of a sudden your motivation stops. But then what keeps you going?
Discipline.
Yeah. Discipline is doing something that you don't like doing, but doing it like you love it, isn't it?
Yeah, so I suppose if you think back to those gym days or rugby training, there's times you don't want to do it, but the discipline is to go and do it.
Yeah, very much so. It's like you boys, if you go out cycling or whatever, you might drag yourself out of the house and you're like, I can't really be arsed today. But then you get home after and you're like, well, that was a good ride, that was sort of how it felt.
And your younger brother, you mentioned earlier, that's the type of thing you'll talk to him, he might be, I can't be arsed doing that. You're just like, you need to build that discipline.
Yeah, I mean, he's 15, obviously, you get into the stage where he's starting to push back a bit himself. We do argue. And it's trying to give him advice that I didn't get myself at that age, I would say.
Right.
Sort of maybe try and stay on track. And that's what we try and do with the podcast is the whole point of him sort of being involved is so that he's got a purpose. So that's Herb, Herb, my little bro. My only brother. He's the guy who does most of the camera work behind the scenes, bit of your Jamie off Joe Rogan, if you want to call it that. Try and give him something that he can work on. I understand that he might be living in my shadow a little bit, which I'm going to try and steer him out of and try and get him to find his own way. But try and give him something that he can work at from a young age so he doesn't fall into the trap of going out on the piss all the time. Or maybe we can't go out tonight because I've got a pod in the morning. Got to be up for, so I'm not stinking hungover. I've got something to do at 15, 16. That might be, I don't know, it might be too early. You might stick at it and then turn around and rebel, but at least I've tried.
Yeah, no, for sure. So Lee, you were down, how long were you down there, New Zealand?
9 months there.
Right, okay.
Me and then John was with me for about 6 months, the lad who came over from the Isle of Man. And, yeah.
What brought you back?
Good question. I would say part of it was my grandmother, probably. She's not extremely ill, but she was at the age of 78. She's not a young lady. That was probably part of it. Secondly, was something to do with Herb.
Right.
Being there as a big brother, maybe when he's 15, and recognising how I felt at that age, sort of a bit lost. I think that I can have hopefully, he won't see it now, but maybe when he's 21 himself, he can look back and think, bloody hell, Percy was actually trying to get me a hand there. I think that giving him, being there for him as a big brother and taking those hits and giving him advice and giving him a bit of a crack around the back of the ear if he needs it, it was something definitely that I think brought me back as well. Maybe. What else would have brought me back? Yeah, I missed home, man.
Yeah, right.
Probably some of it. I'm not
Think
scared.
you're quite a homie. Do you think?
Yeah, I would say I'm a homie. I would say I'm a home bird, and I was out there, and I was that determined to make it work that I didn't really get homesick.
What was your perspective of the Isle of Man when you came back?
That's a good question, man. Very good question. I would say that when I came back, nothing had changed. No one had changed what they were doing. No one had developed. Everyone was still just sort of doing the same thing. I got back and I was like, what is going on here? I left the whole situation. I was still in touch with a few mates. I was like, why has nothing changed? My life has just changed so dramatically over the space of 9 months. You can change your whole course in such a short period of time. It's bananas. So at one point I was going down a straight road like this. Next minute, you're going out this way. Okay, now you're going that road. Right. Then you might end up going that way. If you just stay on this track and nothing changes, nothing's going to change, is it? For as long
So
as
do you think that was a big lesson you learned from going away? Was that development side?
yeah, man. If it feels scary, that's when you do it.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah, love it.
Do you feel you accomplished what you wanted to set out in your time in New Zealand then?
Wonky fences.
Well, no, but as in you said before, is that you wanted this resilience, you wanted to keep at it, you don't like failing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's any of what you've done is failing in any means, but personally for you there, do you feel you got out of New Zealand what you wanted?
100%. I made a great group of friends there. We travelled around New Zealand, so I didn't come back with any money really. A lot of people go out there to save money. That wasn't really what I was out there to achieve. I went out there and experienced every part of New Zealand as what I could. I travelled. I went down to Rotorua. We went down to Queenstown, Christchurch. Went round Raglan, the surf spot. I made sure that I maximised what I did there. And people quite often asked, would you go back? No, because I feel like I've done it, or I've sort of did everything that I wanted to achieve there, if that makes sense. I don't really see the point in going back.
Would you go somewhere else then? And
To live? Not right now. Not right now, because I feel like I'm on a bit of a roll here. I feel like I'm on a bit of a mission. I feel like I'm trying to make a bit of a change. Hopefully try and be a bit of an influence for people on the Isle of Man, and maybe show that if you actually do want to do something and genuinely want to do something, you can actually achieve it if you change your mindset and your lifestyle to adapt to that personal goal that you want to do.
So let's chat about mindset and that goal. Well, and goal, but let's start with mindset. Do you think then before you went, that kind of wasn't there in your mind, should we say? But having had that experience, I wouldn't open up the world, the wrong term, but you've opened your eyes up to like whatever I kind of want to achieve here, whatever that might be from a goal perspective is possible. And that, yeah, I guess that's the question.
Yeah, it certainly made me more open-minded.
Yeah.
100%. And made me see the light, I would say.
Right.
And changed my mindset. Definitely changed my mindset. And, I sort of learned that you can do what you sort of want to do if you actually want to make the change. You know, if you actually, like, for example, to go there, I had to stop going out on the drink all the time to save money to go there because I actually wanted to do it. Yeah. And then when I was there, I was like, right, I actually need to do this now.
Purpose, isn't it?
It is, and being on the Isle of Man, you can sometimes lack purpose because you don't think there's actually a lot going on here, but there actually is because there's actually not. So there's loads of opportunity here because there's not a lot going on here. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
There's so much dynamic that people can go down on the Isle of Man because they're 20 years behind the UK. Look across the water, copy what they're doing, and bring it here. There's mountains of things to do here.
And if we look at your social, do you think that was part of what drove? Like, we've not talked about what I mean, we say it today. What are your goals? What is Percy's goal?
What is my goals? I would say I'm a very big. I'm a bit of a dreamer, if that makes sense. Since then, I'm big into writing down. I got into reading there. This all sounds like I'm 40 years old, but I'd say...
Hey, that's nothing wrong with being 40, man.
got into reading, and this has been quite serious so far.
Is that reading, like, type of reading? What type of reading?
Well, it began with just reading stories, I suppose. I'd never been someone who really read much. Didn't really see the point in reading, but because I didn't have a telly in the house, I just started reading.
Yeah, right.
And there was a library up the road. I was like, get a book and read it.
A book.
Yes, get to bed early. Because I had to get myself up for work. No one was going to kick me out of bed. And I started reading. And I think that my goals would be that to just try and keep going and not fall back.
Okay, yeah.
That is certainly a main goal. Like, because things are getting hard, not hard, but things are challenging, to not fall back into the trap of what if you want to call it, what you used to be, if that makes sense. I'm not a different person now. I'd say I've just down a different path than what I once was, and it's difficult coming back to the Isle of Man and being with the same people. And sometimes there is a bit of pushback because you have changed. I'd say my morals are still the same, not a different person. I just want to now achieve things a different way. I still like going out with the rugby lads, but I just don't drink every time. Do you know what I mean? I don't go out and I don't feel a need to get away from my own thoughts because I'm actually happy with myself now. Go to the gym every morning, ice bath every morning, and then help my mum either on the farm teaching or do something with the podcast or go out and see someone or go and do this, that and the other. It allows me to, I don't know, it's just weird.
Yeah. Okay. So if you look at when we talked about goals there and there's no like, look, a high-performing athlete might go, like, my end goal's the Olympics here, and they've got this end goal, but you don't have that. You're more, I just want to be better at whatever I'm doing in these different spaces every day, so you're continuing to develop, and as you mentioned earlier, if it's something I feel uncomfortable about or makes a bead of sweat go down my back, it's something I should be doing, where human instinct typically is to back off from it.
Yeah, I'd say you probably hit the nail on the head there. I'm like, put my foot down.
Right.
At the moment, like, I've been out talking to people during TT, and that has scared the shit out of me. People think that I'm quite a confident guy, but it was something that at the start of it, I was talking to a couple of mates who I sort of ring ideas off, and I was like, checking this is going to work. Do you think this is going to work? I'm like, well, it might do. Is anyone doing it? Okay, Manx Radio and 3FM, they go around and do bits and pieces, but their mainstream media, they can't have that bit of authenticity. It has to be down a certain narrative. It has to be in line. You can't get a real raw sort of view on things. And I was like, is this? And then I had the problem of going up and approaching people. That scared the crap out of me. Obviously, talking to people at a bar or whatever. How's it going? Yeah, all good. But actually walking up to someone when they're walking past, going, talk to me for a minute, would you? That was like, oh boy. And I thought it was going to be easy. I had it in my head originally that I was going to sit down at a bench with a tripod that I'd bought a tripod with my phone on it, 2 mics, and people are just going to walk up to me because I've got a sign saying, talk to me about this. And I got to trackside at the grandstand on the Tuesday of practice week, sat there, and no booker came and spoke to me. And at that point, I'd made a whole plan, mate. I'd made a whole plan of how the whole of TT was going to run. It was going to run like this, right? I'm going to go to Rencullen today to talk to people. I'm going to go to Cronkyvoddy today to talk to people. I'm going to go, okay, let's go to Ramsey today to talk to people. And I had set days of where I was going to be and what I was going to do. And that first day, I realised this plan's going to have to change. No one was interested because I wasn't approaching them. 2, I had this big-ass tripod that was just immovable. Couldn't carry it around. I was like, right, this needs to that was it. Again. Okay, we've got a problem here. What can we do to solve it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That resilience. I was like, I'm not giving up now. I'm starting this. How can I swivel the plan? So I was like, well, what are people going to be engaged in? Okay, the riders. Let's go walk around the paddock and see if we can capture anyone.
Yeah.
Stood there. Hickman's walking past, and this girl I stood next to, Blay, she was working in his clothes stand. And he was like, she's like, Hickey, come and talk to this guy. And I was like, I can't talk to him. He's too big. I can't talk to him. And he was like, come here, Hickey, come here. He was like, what's this? He was like, what's this idiot doing here with a sign? And a mic and his mate holding his phone. He was like, I was like, can I just talk to you for a second? So I started talking to him. And there's 30 people crowding around us. And I was like, what is going on here? And then it blew up and it got 80,000 views or whatever. And I'm like, well, okay, we're away.
Yeah.
Let's keep doing it. And it was just bizarre.
It's quite interesting because behind the people watching it will not appreciate, I don't think, and this isn't meant disrespectfully, that the difficulty in when you watch you don't look. It's that bead of sweat, I suspect, going down the back of your shirt. Going, fuck, I need to talk to me, or the next question needs to come in my head. You're kind of nervous because you're in a super uncomfortable place. Therefore, talking becomes super uncomfortable as well.
Does it?
Yeah, with a camera in front of you, got to think on your feet while listening to what they're saying as well.
And he's a star, man. Everyone loves the guy.
Yeah.
And it was the first one.
Yeah.
It was the first person I spoke to. I've been thrown straight. How can I beat that?
Yeah.
And then I get this devil in my head. Then I'm like, right, how can I beat that? Can't beat that. What can I do to try and get better than that? So I was like, well, just stay consistent. And then I got this thing of, right, got to do a video every day. I think the consistency on social media, that is what you nail. So I started reaching out to riders then because I didn't want to fail. I've got this really weird thing in me at the moment. I don't know whether it's good. I don't know whether it's bad. But I get scared of not achieving something, if that makes sense. Once I start something, I think that I have to keep going.
Okay.
And if I don't achieve it, say if I sat at home one day and didn't go out and film, that would make me feel very, what was the word, without sounding like a pussy, very anxious or something. Sort of weird feeling in me that I should be doing that. Why am I not doing that? Because I know that it will work, but I just can't be asked doing it. And then I'm like, right, okay, I've got to do it like I love it. Okay, that's that. And people struggle. I mean, I try to explain that to people sometimes, and it's quite weird because they're like, oh well, then you just have a rest. And I say I don't know if that is actually in my inventory. I struggle to rest, struggle to relax, struggle to sort of calm down, or why am I not doing this? Why am I sat on the sofa? I could be doing that. It's genuinely something that comes on in my head. It's bananas.
Who are you? Like I'm listening to you. Who do you can try and prove something to someone?
Yeah, man, I'd probably try and prove something to myself and actually try and make something. I feel like I'm on a good roll. I feel like I'm on a roll now. Mm-hmm. If I just stop and go back to, can I be asked today? Not really. Oh, well. Well, what's going to come of that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is going to actually come of that? I think that, and the people, apparently, from like, I do a little bit of research into like what other people think and not of me, but of life. And apparently, blokes don't really recognise that sense of, okay, we need to actually get up and sort your shit out until you're 25, 28, and then all of a sudden, that's when they click. And I think that I might have just clicked a little bit earlier. People will be listening thinking, well, he's full of shit. But I genuinely think that I have actually clicked on that maybe I need to get my shit sorted out. And if I get it sorted out now, I'm ahead of everyone else. That's why I get up. Yeah. That's why I get up at half 4 in the morning, because I'm like, no one else is getting up and going to the gym at 4:30. So when I'm in the gym at 5 by myself, everyone else is wasting an hour at night going to the gym where they could be doing something else. Weird. Who
do you listen to, podcast-wise?
I listen to all sorts of podcasts. I'm big into Alex Hormozy. He does like a business podcast and talks about scaling businesses and how to take something, break down what the problem is into little sections. Find out where the problem is, which sections are the problem. Okay, address them by, how can we make it better? Pick one of the things you want to make better and do that.
No.
And I think that was quite cool. Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom. I listen to a lot of him because I think that he's really influential, and I'm not scared to admit that. I do listen to these people and probably take on board what they say.
Yeah, only because of some of the stuff you were saying there, and it sounds like, and I haven't heard the first guy you mentioned there, but Chris, and we talked about Rogan before we came on air, that we probably listen to the same stuff because some of the stuff you there resonates. Probably that, not 28, but 36, probably when I figured out that drive thing. It's drive is what you're talking about ultimately.
But then with drive, you can burn out, can't you?
Yeah.
And that also worries me. I would say that not a worrier, but I do get. I'm not scared to admit that I do get anxious about things, if that makes sense. But I deal with that anxiousness by using action. I think that's something that I've listened to a few people say, and it seems to work. If you feel anxiety, I don't like using it because you feel like a bit of a pussy when you say the word anxiety, or you feel like you're sort of in touch with your emotions in a sense. I can feel myself getting anxious. Okay, what's going to solve it? Action. What am I anxious about? Let's go and do it. But that put your foot on the gas rather than back off further. I don't know. I don't know if it's the right way to look at it. I don't know whether it's the wrong way to look at it, but it does give me, I'll probably come off here today and be thinking, well, why the hell did I not say that? Even though I do my own podcast, I'd be like, well, I guess one of them, and it's bizarre. It's bizarre.
You're quite self-critical.
Yeah, probably now. I used to, I would say that I look back and I look back on things, not in the bad way, but I'm someone who does reflect, I think. And maybe reflect in a positive or a negative way. And I need to try and work out, I reflect probably, obviously it's the Sunday after TT now that we're filming this. And I probably reflect and think, right, well, how's it gone? Okay, I spoke to 8 riders. Hickman obviously being the star, but he was the first one. Well, then I'll think to myself, well, how could I have made that better? What did I do well? How did I make it better? Okay, spoke to the biggest guy at the TT, basically. Biggest rider. Great success. What could I have done differently? Maybe you've built up to that rather than hitting that as the first guy. Maybe a few up like that. Maybe that's the sort of way I look at things, I think. I sort of reflect, okay, next time, next TT, what can I do different?
But generally speaking, you'd say he's a positive person. You're a positive.
Yeah, man.
That's certainly how it comes across.
Big time positive. I try to look on try to be optimistic. I think that, and look at a problem and think about how we can make it better, rather than thinking about how it can be worse. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. And being, I'll use the word younger lad. If people listening around your age or younger or even older, you talk about anxious. What does anxious feel like to you?
It's something that I haven't really... Well, it's something that's only really come into my life recently, since I've been putting things out to the public. I would say it's become a lot more apparent, and I'm not somebody who likes to align with the word because it's not something that I believe is... If you think about your problems all the time, you won't stop thinking about them. So I try not to think about them too much, if that makes sense. But I'm not scared. I'm man enough to admit that we all do feel it sometimes. And if you said you don't, you're a liar. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you're someone who says, "Oh, I never worry or never feel anxious," I think you're full of shit, because everyone tends to feel it at some point in their life or have felt it. You just need to recognise how to deal with it, and I think it is just by believing doing what you actually want to do, rather than trying to live a life of someone you're not. I'm someone who likes to talk to people. I've worked it out. I'm okay with my hands. I can build things to a degree. I can do whatever, but I actually genuinely like talking to people. Yeah. I like doing it. That's my job. I teach people. I'm getting better and better at teaching people how to horse ride. Do my qualification of that, but it's talking to people. It's communicating and trying to get better at communicating. So that's something I actually want to do, if that makes sense, and actually want to talk to people about.
I know we kind of jumped. Sorry, a little quick going back there. Exactly what you just said there. Is that what prompted where we are with What's the Ski then? Because you come back, and what prompted that then? What prompted that decision to be like, do you know what, I'm going to start a podcast?
I would say that, obviously you guys were a podcast here, but there was not a regular podcast on the Isle of Man. I think there was an opening there. There wasn't someone who, if you look at the Isle of Man, right, tell me who's a young influence on the Isle of Man who's out publicly really sort of talking to people and trying to get.
I must say, I was only thinking this a couple of weeks ago. I think before we connected, but I'm sure that maybe there are, and maybe there's models or young girls that, I say, 18, 19-year-old, but none that the impact you're having right now that I see out there. Yeah.
I'm willing to make mistakes in public and make myself look like a dick.
Well, yeah, that's your perception now.
But you know what I mean? Like, I'm willing to throw myself out there and be that sort of influence for the Isle of Man. Hopefully for young lads, like, to do stuff and put by doing the podcast, I was like, right, okay. The Isle of Man is a niche in itself. There's loads of podcasts all over the world that I'd listened to on my travels. Got back and there was nothing here. You guys had done your sports podcast and I thought that was quality, and you guys were highlighting that side of things. And rather than seeing that as a negative thing, try and work together with you guys and see how we can push the island forwards together, because with information comes knowledge. Yeah. Without people actually knowing what goes on the Isle of Man, no one's going to know. Without information about what's going on, no one's going to actually know. Mm-hmm. The radio channels and all do a good job of pushing things out, but I believe they only push a certain narrative. Mm-hmm. Let's actually talk about some serious things. You know what I mean?
I think the world now, you can see from the US elections where the mainstream media, that they certainly have a place, but people want, let's call it raw. I think raw is a word.
Authentic, maybe.
Yeah. That people are. And I always felt that when Matt and I started doing the podcast, although we were very sports focused, the one thing I always liked about sports, your own podcast, is whatever message you want or you don't want a message, but you're free to do and say as you please. So if I want to call the whole of government a pile of shit, I can, or whatever you want to do, you've got the freedom to do that. Obviously, that's not particularly productive.
But it's not.
It's that own voice to get whatever you will feel message you want to get across.
Yeah,
it's quite powerful. Like I think, like you create a platform, you've got a platform it becomes very powerful, because you then. I look at this in business. So in business, where you want to promote your business to do it, and you got to pay other people to do it. Mm-hmm. If you create your own platform, then you don't have to pay other people to promote your products and services. So in essence, that's what you're doing, because you unlike any influencer, they're creating their own platform and circumnavigating what I call the old way of doing things.
And I think that there was just a gap here on the Isle of Man. There was a gap for a young person, a young lad who wasn't, or maybe not scared. I was certainly scared, but had a pair of nuts to have a go at it. I shit myself. Yeah. Absolutely terrified.
It's interesting because I suspect, I don't know, but I'd observe it that people don't see there's just, Percy can chat to anyone. It comes naturally, and I like the story of. I always tell this story. I'm sure Christian Barley doesn't mind me saying this story. So Christian, we did a podcast a number of years ago. Mm-hmm. Should have been a pro cyclist at the end of the day. Struggled mentally. Was very open with us on the podcast. And as a young lad, he was probably 30 when we spoke to him, mid-30s. And he spoke about his mental health struggles, really. And he had then young lads, and mates of his reaching out to him, or friends just saying, I'm really glad I listened. Can I go for coffee with you? I'm struggling, I've got voices in my head. For the want of a better expression, it's challenges in my own head. So having young people, especially on the Isle of Man, I'm not saying you're necessarily that's the channel you're talking about, but that ability just to be authentic, I guess, is back to that. Whatever that authenticity is, whether it's vulnerability or honesty, it's refreshing. It's refreshing.
Yeah, man. I think that you've got to be real, haven't you? You've got to keep it real. Like you got to know who you are.
And that's why I compare to mainstream media, where I'm not sure that's quite real.
Yeah, well, I don't personally. I think that you can't swear. That's not a big deal. But okay, well, what else is going on there? How else can you? Well, what's going on in the Isle of Man that maybe the media aren't capturing?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you've got sports that you guys are covering. I'll do bits and pieces of sports as well. What else is there? Well, there's small businesses, local business owners. Okay, well, that's great. Manx producers. That's great, because the Manx producer part on the Isle of Man is now starting to flourish again. I think in the last 5 years or so, or 4 years since COVID or whatever, people are now starting to start up. You see all different foods, different things popping up. Man-Made Festival was good in TT for Manx businesses. There was all sorts in there. And I think that the Isle of Man is special because it's different, and it has to stay different to a degree. Obviously, change keep changing. This not idea of change is bad, needs to change, but it has to keep pushing forwards, but cherish what we've got here. So that's what draws people in. What we've got here is an island that's not the UK, that's not Ireland, that's different. The last thing we need to do is to change that into something like them, because otherwise no one's going to come here. They're just going to go to the UK.
Yeah.
We need to cherish what's on the Isle of Man, and what we have here is bloody special, in my opinion. There is so much depth on the Isle of Man. People say there's nothing to do. Young people say there's nothing to do. Okay, well, if you say that there's nothing to do, what do you want to do? Tell people what you want. And I'm sure there can be some form of service to provide that. And there's people trying to make businesses all over the place. So if someone has an idea of something to do on the Isle of Man, give it a go. Like, navigate it so it's suited to the Isle of Man. Like, so what I'm doing, I have to make sure that I'm dead proactive in getting weekly guests or have a good backlog of guests, because you do become short on the Isle of Man, and that's why I cover so many different spectrums. Maybe spectrums is the wrong word.
No, you mean.
Different avenues, because you can't just go down one niche on the Isle of Man. It's too small. You have to go down, okay, bit of there, bit of there, bit of there, bit of there. Okay, then back around, bit of there, bit of there, bit of there, bit of there. Because if you just go just down, I don't know, just down sports, for example, you run out of sports people eventually.
Why we expanded it.
Do you know what I mean? You'll run out of that eventually, and that's sort of what I've learned by watching you guys and watching what's going on the Isle of Man. I sometimes come across as someone who's a bit like, I can be a bit away with it, but I do sort of watch what's going on.
Yeah,
I do sort of. I'm somebody who, when I walk into a room, I sort of feel the vibe and right, what's going on here? What am I learning? What am I going? And by realising that the Isle of Man is a niche itself, the Isle of Man is special in its own way. Is a bit of is something that's not that clicked on here. I don't think people don't actually recognise how different we are. In a sense, do you know what I mean? We are different. We're an island at the end of the day. An island mindset, an island life is a real thing.
Yeah, for sure.
If that makes sense.
No,
and people can click onto why we're different and go down an avenue. Let's go down and see what it is. Make it different.
So what I was quite interested in was I listened to a bit of the podcast with I'm not into my politics, Morehouse, James.
Yeah, Jason.
And I don't know this, and this is not. It felt like I'd struggle myself. I'm not that I've ever been into politics, but have a conversation with a politician because I just don't know the area. Of course, you can do the research and ask the general questions. What I like, and I'm interested in if you observe this in yourself, is there's a curiosity about you. And is that just something that's always been there? And I tell you why, Perce. Just listening to you, I mean, I wasn't particularly academic, or wasn't at all, and in my younger years, and I think by default it made me more curious because I would ask questions because I didn't quite get it, I didn't quite understand it.
Yes.
Which I think later in life has then helped me, not necessarily for this type of environment we're sat in here, but in life in general and in my own career, because you learn to ask questions, and perhaps people in the room who are probably more intelligent than you are unwilling to ask it because they think it's stupid. The reality is they just don't want to, what we'd perceive as dumb, but we just ask it anyway. But I'm quite interested because you spoke to a politician. So do you think is that something you've observed in yourself, that curiosity, that's a real attribute that helps, certainly in what you do? I mean, I struggle to do, I've had to do a few videos for the challenge I'm doing, selfie videos, and I hate it. Absolutely hate it. And I genuinely looked at someone like you thinking, I just, because you're so judgy about yourself. I don't speak for you, I speak for myself there. That you don't want to make an ass of yourself. You don't want to, and a lot of people are judging it. It's really ultimately it's their issue, not yours, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I suppose I was talking about the curiosity.
I'd say people. I mean. I think that I'm someone who's always asked why. If you ask like my parents or anything, I was always why are you doing that? I wasn't. Academics wasn't really for me. Not interested in sitting down in the classroom all day, but observing it. And I was always that kid who was a bit of a class clown, bit of a crazy bugger. But I'd always sit and observe and read people. I feel like I can catch a vibe off people dead quick. And I'm curious in people, I think. I'm curious getting to know people. Like, what makes Jason Morehouse as a politician? What makes him tick?
Yeah.
And what makes what is going on here on the Isle of Man, and how are the politicians actually, what are the politicians actually viewing here, and what how do they see the Isle of Man and what is going on through their eyes? Because the public and the politicians, the communication between the pair of them, it's all over the chippy. Do you know what I mean?
All over the chip.
Yeah, it's all over the place. It's just
Okay, that's Robert Mank saying that.
it's just all over the place. Yeah. And it was bananas getting him on, because it was sort of, I felt like I was way out of my comfort, like way out. What am I doing? A 21-year-old lad who's done practically not a lot since I left school, other than just go out and sort of experience the world a bit. What am I doing sat here talking to a politician of me local?
No, but it's interesting because the questions you're asking him, I'm 48 now and I've not really followed politics. I'm not massively engaged in it, but you were asking questions of interacting. How do the ministers interact with the House of Keys? And my granddad was an MHK. I don't really know, is the honest answer. I've never taken massive interest, but that's why I'm again observant of that curiosity to not be afraid to ask those questions of going, just explain how they interact. And then you're ultimately letting the audience, because probably again it's that what we might class that stupid person in the corner going, how does this work? Because the rally is, maybe a lot of people probably don't know how it works.
And what do you think about the politics here?
I'm similar. I've
never voted.
I'm not versed in something that I couldn't have an actual opinion on. It's, I said, I know what happens, I know what goes on. But I'm exactly the same in that situation. Yeah, no.
Do you not care about what's going on here?
I think you do.
Surely you must care about what your own island is up to and who's in charge of what's going on here, or what?
You know what's interesting? Because, sorry to interrupt, Matt. I was, again, thinking about this recently because I'm a believer. I try not to moan about anything because... Stop laughing. No. Because
you say why.
You should only moan about, like, if you're moaning about something that's my bin's only collected twice a week, or it's just like, so I have a view of, you can't really moan about, you can't moan about it because you got to go out and fix it. If you want to fix something, you want to moan about how, we ride bikes all the time. I can moan about the potholes all day long, but I don't run the department that sorts out the potholes. If I want to fix the problem, run for head of DOI and fix the problem. So I don't really moan about it. So therefore, I wouldn't say nothing irritates me, but it's just like, it's not, I can't control it. And therefore, I could do something about it.
But let me just stop you there. But do you feel like you've got no voice?
No, not at all.
Do you feel like you can't communicate with your local person and nothing get done? If you go and moan if you go and moan to your local MHK or your MHK in your area and say, we've got 6 potholes here that my car's driving through and knackering me suspension every day. Do you feel like that word isn't like, do you sort of feel like, what's the point in going and moaning because nothing's going to get done anyway?
No, not so much nothing done. I just...
Yeah, I say I don't want to turn into mass politics, but when you're saying that don't get involved, exactly. I'm Colby, so Morehouse is mine, and it's
What's
that
number.
Yeah, no, but it's that moaning mentality and that sort of sense to me is that yes, I get annoyed whenever I see X, Y, Z, and it's exactly what Mark's touched on there. It's in my control, like, you know. Again, not going down. But it's in like where I am, road. There's basically a construction site for a year. Morehouse has come done nothing against Jason. Come in, done what I see as a public piece of, this is a mess. That was back in December and we're still a mess. And
correct.
I'm Arbery, you know, like you can go through a number of different things that are being done.
Yeah.
And you said, what is being done about it? And it's like, my voice is like, I'm not someone overt.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm going to be messaging people all the time because I don't know whether my perception is like, it's just, when you say about that voice, for what I feel is I'm just going to say something and it's just going to go in junk folder. You know, I put a message, that's nice, junk.
Well, I completely agree with you, mate. Like, I'm not denying what you guys are saying.
Exactly, and that's it. It's like it doesn't. That's where I get to is that I get frustrated and annoyed when I read all this stuff going on and spending here, spending there. All I hear is money going, and it's like I'm not a politician. I feel I have to qualify. Yeah, it's just that I sometimes no, but that's what you said. What's your control? I'd run for it, and like I'm not involved in that. But you're right. For me, it's so many people, so many voices, and I just feel that it just like what's their new campaign at the minute, the roadshow, where they're going around and listening, and everyone's just laughing at it. It's like you'll listen, but you won't hear.
Exactly.
That sort of response.
Let them say it, but you're not actually going to take it in, are you?
And that's unfortunately the opinion I have in it.
Okay, I appreciate that opinion.
Yeah.
But the problem we have is people are scared about talking about politics here because they seem like they're moaning, so nothing's going anywhere.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm trying to say? If we don't have politicians on to talk about what's going on here, and they're not getting defensive, but we say, oh well, we don't want to talk about it, but we actually have to identify what's going on. Mm-hmm. Somebody has to identify what's going on. And the radio channels can do it all they like, but it's not necessarily sitting down, because I know after 25 to 30 minutes that someone can only put on a show for that long.
Yeah. And
when I sit down with if I sit down with another politician, or when I sit down and approach a conversation with Jason's a great guy, by the way. I do sort of align. I sort of see where he's getting at, and I'm not a hater, and I would never hate, because I'm very open-minded and see everyone's opinion. But you actually get to talk. When you talk to someone for a long period of time, you can see if they are real. Do you know what I mean? And you can sort of, okay, you guys would have done it as soon as I walked in here. You'd be reading, right, how long is this guy going to sit and talk and be able to just waffle on, and then you'll know about half an hour and right, the conversation really begins. And that's sort of what I find fascinating, and like talking about the curiosity. I'm like, okay, how long? I love it. Is this person real or what?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Sit down and have that conversation and be able to talk to people. I love doing it.
I think if I swing to, again, I'm not political in regard to American, but listen to Trump on long-form podcasts, you see more of a guy that when you listen to mainstream media, and why wouldn't that be the same on a local level, where you might get snippets on Manx Radio, etc. But when you get to peel back the onion, you get to understand. Because the reality is, and this is probably to go back to, I don't do it because I don't want to moan. If we go back to, again, not being defensive, I'm not trying to be defensive about my view. I just don't really have an interest in it. I suppose I have enough going on in my own life to be like, if it's that much of a hassle, I've crashed my bike through a pothole, wrecked a bike before, and been like, effing road. But I suppose I just not engaged in it, rightly or wrongly. But I also don't then do the flip side of being online and moaning about anything. I think that's definitely wrong. I think if you're going to go actively moan, I mean, I'm not saying conversations are dead important, aren't they?
Yeah. But you have not the place over comment. It's not the place to have productive conversations, because you can't actually interpret how the person is putting it across.
But if you listen to most of those politicians, that would be an example where the reality is they're all trying to do a good job. No one's like, I always go back to when you're born. When you're born, aren't you? You're not born evil. You're not born to do bad things. There's circumstances and things that motivate there. So if you're getting into politics, you're not doing it. I mean, I don't know why people would. It blows my mind, because it just seems to be you get grief. But they're obviously trying to do the right things, aren't they? So if you understand the broad spectrum of, we'd love to spend money here on your potholes, but we can't because we're spending it here. And I'd look after 120 people. You're never going to satisfy everyone. By the way. You're never going to satisfy everyone, though, are you?
That's crazy how you manage that many people. By the way.
Well, I suppose I don't manage, but that's a business with 120 people in it.
That's fucking crazy.
But you just got to. When you look at the politicians, they're only ever going to make 60, 70, 80% people happy, because that's life. Because money, things, spend.
Opinions,
so I always think those longer conversations, and hopefully more of them will do them and get to understand that the decisions they make, of course they'll make some you don't agree with, because that's the way the world, isn't it? If we all got what we wanted,
totally. And that's sometimes the problem on the Isle of Man, the fact that there isn't a place for opposing opinions. Your keyboard warriors over Facebook are notorious for the Isle of Man criticising the politics. It's a big problem, man. It's a big problem. People are really starting to sort of see it and wake up. You talk about the island's 10, 20 years behind the UK. People are actually starting to wake up and realise that maybe the way that things are being ran here isn't as efficient as what it could be. But people ranting and talking pure drivel over...
Yeah, and my comment at the start was that of like, either kind of go and do something about it, or which isn't moaning, or do something about it, or just.
That comes from communication between the public and not being heard, man. If enough people don't get heard, They rise, and that's what's
course.
happening. People are starting to rise up because nothing what they want to get done is getting done.
Yeah.
And I mean that was a rabbit hole we went down there, wasn't it? Really, but it all comes back to the curiosity of me,
right.
not I like to see what type of person you are. Do you know what I mean? Okay, are you someone who's gonna is this politician? If I got Alf Cannon, not to name drop, I'm sure he's a genuine guy, but if I got him on to talk, okay, well, how long can you be MHK Alf Cannon, and then do you become now you're a general person? Are we talking about what's going on? Like, how long does that take? Do you know what I mean? And what type of person actually are you? And the public sometimes actually need to know what type of person they are. You can't. Your public front people need to know.
I think there's a connection because I think when you realise we're all, a baby at one stage, we've all got family, we've all got, well, not everyone, but broadly value. If you actually peel back the onion of people, you'll understand that. Again, if you talk about Alf, I've got no idea politically.
No, neither.
But
still want to know what's
I'm sure he's got a family. I think his old man was a politician. Served the country. So yeah, you're right. And it's that curiosity and it's quite interesting because I think you'd like to think if you could get all the politicians on just to talk.
Yeah.
That people might have a better appreciation of what's going on, and like you say, communication. Then, isn't it?
But young people like your generation isn't really bothered about what's going on here. Okay, but you guys are at the age where you could, you've got your own business, you can have an influence in a different way of what's going on in your own way. But as someone who's young, okay, the young people say there's nothing to do. Well, the politicians and people like that are the ones who can and have the powers to make a change. So it's good to know what's actually going on here.
Yeah.
It's good to know what's going on. Like, I went and sat in before the Jason Morehouse podcast. He invited me down to the House Keys, and I sat in and listened with Herb, who's 15. Sat in and listened to a sitting for an hour or whatever, because I wanted to sort of have a bit more of an idea of what's going on.
Yep.
What was that like?
But it was weird, mate, because you sat up on a chair at the back and you're sort of seeing what's going on, and you're looking down and you're thinking to yourself, you don't know 2/3 of, you've never heard or seen who 2/3 of the people actually are in there.
All right.
It's just like, what's going on? Do you know what I mean? And I think there's that, not being political, and I don't want to be involved in politics, but I'd like to be the person maybe to pick the brains of the politicians, and I've got my views on it. But if someone else has got a completely different view, then that's okay, I think.
I don't know how young or the youngest politician might be, but do you find then as a younger person, I suppose that's what you're saying, there's a disconnect. But
big time.
But the question is, if you took 100 people of Percy's age, how many are actively interested? Whether they should be is a separate question, but how many are actually actively interested?
I would say none.
All right.
I'd say people do.
And is that because they just don't want to be, or because not because the engagement isn't there, but either the platform's not there, or they're just not asked because there's better things to do?
It's very similar to your attitude. What is my voice? We're a small community. We should be able to have a voice at the end of the day. It's not like it's 6 million people here. There's 80,000, which isn't a great amount when you come to look at it. But we should, people just say, oh well, why am I asked? Why should I be bothered? Because my voice ain't going to get heard. I'm not going to be able to make a change, and my opinion doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
You hear that from people your age.
But I'd like to ask you, how do you think we could solve that problem?
Of the youngsters not engaging?
Well, of why people on the Isle of Man, as someone who you've got your own business, how would you
I'd like to say it's mine, but yeah.
Well, I know what you mean.
You
sort of, you've got those 120 people under you.
Yeah.
How would you sort of maybe improve that connection between young people or middle-aged people and the politicians? Because I haven't been through life and experienced the sort of things that you guys have been here twice as long as me.
Yeah.
How old are you, Matt? 33?
Wow, 35.
35. You've been here a lot longer than me. So, from your experience on the Isle of Man, growing up and living here.
So I think your start point is and these are obviously, well, who cares whose opinions they are, but they're mine. If I start with, and it's never something I've thought about.
But it might be your generation's opinion, which is different to mine. So I'm curious about what
I believe
actually...
the island's obviously pretty affluent. I speak generally, the island's pretty affluent. I'm not saying it's not poor people, there's not people that go to there's way more people go to the food bank than I think this Isle of Man really appreciates.
Okay.
But broadly, the spectrum of the 100, if you took 100 sample, the bulk of people are fairly affluent. So when you talked earlier about uprisings, which is people's voice, obviously that gets louder when people are under more financial duress. And the reality is on the Isle of Man, I'm not disputing there's not people struggling, but generally everyone's more wealthy than not wealthy. So therefore, when things are fairly good, people tend to just get on with it. So I think that's one start point of, am I living somewhere rough and ready, and I'm worried about crime, and I'm not. The scheme of my problems on the Isle of Man as an Isle of Man resident are pretty small. So do I particularly need to, the potholes are a pain in the ass, but at least my bike, which you saw just sat outside, it's not getting robbed, is it? Oh, I hope not. Getting robbed. So it's like, I think your start point is, I think there's less engagement because we've just got less hassle is the reality. Yeah. And then maybe the things that are hassle, like the travel off the Isle of Man, which is very Isle of Man centric, becomes really loud because there are a lot of dissenting voices then because it affects a lot of people where crime doesn't, because it just, so you see these maybe pockets of dissenting, more louder dissenting voices in the areas of maybe island frustration. Yeah. But I'd also go back to then, if you talk about maybe, again, thinking off the top of my head here, planes or aircrafts, it's like, am I going to change it by moaning about it? I don't know. I don't want an easy jet. But I'm not saying people shouldn't have opinion and view their opinion. So, yeah, I mean, and as I said, my granddad was an MHK. He was in Onken Commissioners. My mother was in Onken Commissioners, and politics is of zero interest to me, I think. In the sense of, I believe, and we talked earlier before we came in about community and the importance of helping community, so I try and do that through the business to help community. I've been chairman of the cycling club. I think it's really important to put into the community. So maybe when sometimes I look at politicians and I do think, are they coming at it from they want to help people angle, which I'm not sure always people think about. They might just think they're maybe on a power, I'm not saying, but on a power trip, and I think, why would you want to be a politician? It's just getting grief all the time.
Yeah, it's not really a role that people would want to do.
No, and it should.
Correct.
Should be.
Correct.
Because it should be, it should be something of pride and again, a we then, if we, I'm all about taking ownership. So we as
ownership, I like that.
Yeah, as people on the Isle of Man, like, are we gonna drive down, or the ability for people to step forward and, like, as a business leader, say you've made a couple of million working on the Isle of Man, and you're kind of semi-retired, and you're like, I could make a change on the Isle of Man. And you're like, do I? Because you probably don't get into it for money, I assume. I don't know what they're paid or whatever, but would they want to step forward and help the Isle of Man when you see all the aggro that comes with it? I don't know.
They wouldn't.
So is it on us to stop to find better ways of that collaboration, communication doesn't become I guess at times loggerheads, which I assume it does. Again, because I don't really follow it, but I don't hear people singing praises about politicians, is the honest answer. But then you tend to hear people tend to prefer to talk down than up. I mean, which I find very frustrating. But
I
that's
do too.
A human thing, I assume. I don't know.
But do you hear anywhere on the Isle of Man, either of you, where there's actually people genuinely talking about what's going on here? Like, genuinely, publicly, actually speaking about the Isle of Man, what they like to improve, what they would like to change. Like, at the end of every podcast of mine, we always ask the same question of what would you like to improve or change about the Isle of Man, to try and throw ideas out there, because it has to be a place publicly. These difficult conversations.
I think most people will probably what Mike said, it's just not going to happen. I'm not saying people shouldn't do it, but it's a shame, isn't it? And I know how we can control things in a really small space. Our world's our oyster, isn't it? In many ways, and it's just for whatever reason.
It's something that really needs to be identified through.
I wonder whether politicians should come to school. I don't know whether they go to schools, talk to schools, try and engage with. Do you think they get sports people in to engage people into sport in school? Why isn't there more engagement at that younger age?
The problem's been highlighted through the keyboard warriors on Facebook because of the attention that the problems are getting. There just now has to be action to try and work out where the problems are being involved. And I mean, my opinion, your opinion, and your opinion are ours, but everyone else's voices have to be heard in some other way. So by getting multiple people on and talking about what they'd like to improve or change, I feel like definitely with the podcast anyway, where this whole political conversation began, is picking about what people think, what their views and opinions are, because I think that their views and opinions matter.
Well, I think he mentioned he knocked on every door in Malou in his, I think, when he was running the last time.
Yeah.
So they're obviously out listening.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
I could only imagine some conversations of the spectrum of ages and people from I'm not interested to.
How do you even approach those conversations?
I mean, that's why it just feels like to try and do that. I mean, politics is not something I'd ever really think about running, but you want to help the island. We love the Isle of Man. I'm Manx.
Yeah.
Then you think, is there enough positivity for this noise over here? Because that's what you need this to outweigh this, or to be so stoic that you can be like, all the crap you hear, you're so stoic on where you're going that doesn't drag you down.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like a comment. You listen to it. I mean, you talk about podcasts and famous people that just don't read the comments.
I don't really read comments.
Yeah, because it'll send you to a place. Imagine being a politician where you've got to, basically, haven't you? You've got not necessarily on social, but you're knocking on someone's door. Comments it's like having a comment.
People's opinions of them actually matter. People's opinions of me and you are irrelevant, really, in the grand scheme of things. What we're doing it off our own back, and the people dislike us for it. Well, fuck them. But it's what we sort of want to do, if that makes sense, and I'm okay with that. But they actually do have to. If 50 people are saying, 100 people are saying the same thing about someone, you're a bit like, okay.
I think I can find 50 cyclists to moan about a pothole.
Yeah, definitely. It's yeah. That's
so what would you change?
What would I change?
Now I'm on to steal your own question.
I have thought about this question long and like obviously asking it myself. I'm a bit like, well, I've got to sort of think about it, haven't I? I would say that communication is definitely one which I've certainly highlighted through the whole lot of this podcast. That's something that I definitely wanted to come on here today and make relevant because it needs to be highlighted. And I don't know if I'm not trying to be some hero, but there has to be some form of like, okay, we're living in 2025. Communication on the Isle of Man needs to be better of what's going on here. Like I said before, with information comes knowledge. That's something that I would definitely change, is maybe how people are communicating with their people who are in charge. And I would say that maybe
it's interesting, that comment, isn't it? People in charge.
I would maybe try and people in charge.
No, but it's like government aren't there to be in charge. They're not. They're there to serve the people.
Yeah,
but it's
they're
quite
in charge,
interesting, the language. Yeah.
They are in charge. They make the decisions. You and me don't make the decisions, do we?
No, but
because you don't even vote.
Well,
you don't even make the decision on who's in charge of your own community, man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, but they my point being, they're there to serve the people, aren't they?
Yeah,
and they're the voice of those people who want to speak.
Yeah,
me not being one.
Yeah, which is okay, by the way. I'm not hating on that.
Yeah, no. And I just interested in the mindset. Again, I love the mindset and how people think and language people use, and that language of they're in charge, and the reality is they're not in charge. They are, like, they make a decision, but it should be based on, like, if you've got a boss at work, the whole point of a boss is to empower you, in my belief anyway, is to empower you to make the decisions. And the reality is it's under influence from the leaders, whatever form they take. I mean, as a manager, it's the same. You influence people to steer them and move them. But the reality is you want to empower them to make the decisions, and the fact you're referring to them as having the ultimate power and being in charge shows that, to me, you don't feel like you are making the choices. And the reality is you are by voting. Mm-hmm. But you're not, because you've just admitted they make the choice.
Yeah, man. I'm not denying that one. I'm not denying that at all. I think that my view on that is very clear. I think that I would certainly like to improve. Maybe this is slightly controversial, but I think the Isle of Man needs to maybe not rely solely upon TT for their full economic income and keep them alive for the year. I think that is a problem because the TT isn't guaranteed to be here forever. Mm-hmm. So there has to be other things that draw people here to keep the economy going. Now, I don't know anything about economics. I'm not really into it. But I can see that, like, sort of by talking to people, and I'm sort of getting a bit of a accidental education here by actually speaking to people from the Isle of Man. It's sort of a bit banal. I'm like, what? I'm starting to learn things that I never thought I'd even be interested in. But for example, I spoke to Martin Bushweiler, the owner of Bushies, or CEO of Bushies, and he was like, we earn in the 2 weeks, or did when they had the bottleneck car park, they earn what they did in 2 weeks, what they'd earn for the rest of the year. Or twice as much, or 3 times as much. I can't remember. I think it was twice or 3 times as much. That to me, that cannot be safe for. I don't. You know what I mean?
Well, you have COVID. You have a foot and mouth. I think he talked about on there. Didn't
people
he?
lose like how can you be that? I'd like there to be something else that draws people to the Isle of Man. Whether that's the Manx Rally going bigger again, and investment being put into that. There's been heaps of investment into the TT, which I think is tremendous. By the way, what an event! It has to be. I'd like to see other things like that. You know, the rally, maybe. Yes, the closed roads are a pain in the ass, but people coming over from all over the world to watch that and sort of make the Isle of Man exciting in that sort of sense. Investments in other areas. I'm not sure. What do you think?
Yeah, no,
What do you think,
agree.
Matt? You're quite quiet in the corner there.
Yeah, go on. Fine.
No, I don't think anyone wants to listen to me. No,
I do.
No. Right now, I'm not too sure. I'm being put on the spot here.
Really?
I'll happily answer.
I like. As you said, you made sitting in the corner.
You're a listener, man.
Very much so.
Watching you.
Very much so. No, I know what I am. I like listening.
I too much. That's
Yeah,
well,
it works well. He talks a lot. I listen.
I think that's
but no,
really
it's similar. I like listening, picking up on people, reflecting that side. So that's me.
Yeah.
I'm probably and exactly when you talk about reflecting, when you go home, I'll probably think about, do you know what I should have said to that question? And I really think about that. Oh, I should have said that type of thing. But anyway,
yeah, definitely.
go on, Martin.
You've lost what
so
we
I
were
think the
talking about.
government. No, I think the government. So I've seen, and not necessarily all. I mean, so talk about closed roads, and I mean, you use the word pain in the ass. I think it's an amazing opportunity for the Isle of Man because something you can't do pretty much elsewhere in the world. The ability to close roads. It's the only reason we've got the TT. I organise push bike races, and again, make sure people get paid off.
Great point.
We close roads to make them safer for guys. We've got the most high-profile athlete in the world from this island through a sport I love, and so we try and leverage that. Not that they wouldn't close the roads for us. We close roads to run bike races, which we run some Northwest championships over here a couple of years ago, and the guys who came over and girls who came over to race it was just like, this is amazing. You close the roads for us. It's like, how can we leverage these things?
Yeah, there's so much depth for cyclists here as well, isn't it? We've got every form of terrain. We've got hills, downhills, flats. We've got, you've got the Isle of Man's your oyster when it comes to bicycle.
They used to race around the Willesden circuit years ago. They used to close that where you go through the grandstand, take a right along Ballard Road up. They used to close that circuit off. So I think while it is in many ways a pain, it's unique. And you talked earlier about the Isle of Man.
100%.
It's like how much more? And I've seen sort of like they have the Gran Fondo cycling event where guys come over again, closed roads, so they leverage the closed roads. It's also an amazing, beautiful place to come and race. So I think the Isle of Man government, and again, someone who's 1,000 miles away observing it, I've seen them, and they do give grants out to support events or back events, which might not ultimately make money, but they get people to the Isle of Man. So I think there's some of it going on. Could there be more? Always.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
I think the government. Look, and I think if I had to put my neck on that, I think the government's probably a bit bloated. I think it probably could be more efficient. In fact, I'm pretty sure it could be more efficient.
Yeah.
But am I going to moan about it? No, because if I want to do something about it, I should go and get a job somewhere senior in government and try and fix the problem. So I suppose I wouldn't really. I just don't comment on it. Maybe that's a bad thing, and maybe I should, or people should more. I speak for myself. I should more, but I just don't know. Again, life's content on the Isle of Man, so it's like
that's the problem that I found when I left. Having that sort of urgency to make things work was. I sort of brought that back here now. I start the podcast, but once you go public or something like that, you have to make it work.
Yeah.
I felt pressure and I felt anxious because I started this. I can't just throw it or I can't stop it. Right? Okay, how can I navigate that? Right, an hour every morning I spend planning and trying to make it work.
Yeah.
No one's going to give you it, are they?
No.
Like
What's the
anything, you're not
drive?
going to just get given something. You've got to put some form of effort into it. If you want it bad enough, you can make it work, I think.
And then if we talk generally then about what you're doing there, and we talk about maybe not reading comments, but generally, I assume the feedback you get generally is like what you're doing. Obviously, TikTok stuff's fun. It's not all serious
No,
stuff.
TikTok's not really serious. No,
and
laugh.
And like from a, let's say, strategic point of view, from what you do on TikTok to the podcast, it's ultimately Percy. You are the brand, but do you keep them very? This is work, fun. How or do you?
It's been well. I mean, right. Okay. Let me just right. So TT has been bananas because things have grown at an exponential rate, and I haven't experienced the likes. Like everywhere I seem to go now, people know me, and I've only like it was a bit of a thing if I went out with my mates on the odd occasion, like just out to the pub or whatever, and I was driving. People, the odd person would be like, "Oh, how you doing? I've seen you. What you doing? Okay, great." TT, mate, has been mental. Now it has been a completely different environment for me. It put me completely out of my comfort zone. People come and asking for pictures, things like that. That's been happening. Now, obviously, I understand that it's something that comes with it, but I'm not I don't see myself as a celebrity. So by putting funny or stupid videos on TikTok, it's just a bit of a laugh. Do you know what I mean? And I appreciate that people thinking of me as someone who deserves to get a bit, but. And it's only just become relevant that what I'm doing is growing at a rapid rate. And now that I've got here, I'm like, right, well, now I might as well just keep going with it, I think. I might as well just roll with it. And during TT, I was posting. So the way I sort of seen it was, okay, before TT, my followership for the podcast and majority of the TikTok was Manx people. And a little bit of British people, okay? But the problem the way I sort of looked at it before TT is how can I gain exposure to other people away from the Isle of Man who love the Isle of Man and see the quality in it? And as it certainly from a little bit of a business point of view of talking to people who I bounce ideas off and sort of trust in their opinions, they're like, right, I need to gain exposure. So by putting myself out there, whilst there's people on the Isle of Man who are not from the Isle of Man, it'll only grow the podcast that way. If that makes sense. So at the moment, like before TT, it was just growing down a straight road of purely just Manx people, basically, who were following it. Now, because of the videos with the riders, who people are genuinely interested in, not just from the Isle of Man, now gone, okay, now the tree is starting to go off to the side and the branches are starting to form and there's different inputs, which hopefully... it grows slowly. Whereas if you're just in one straight line, you're not necessarily gonna find any different avenues, are you? And that's sort of route I tried to take with it. Whether that makes sense to the people listening or not, I don't know. But is try to put it on every platform so I can grow and gain exposure in either way, and begin to link. Okay, Percy, the guy who's going out doing fun videos and having a laugh, is genuinely serious about stuff as well. I can have, and someone who can, I feel like I can hold quite a good conversation and not go or whatever, and actually show that maybe I'd like to one day do it as a job. And I'd like to genuinely talk to people as a job one day, probably. And that's the sort of goal with it all. At the end of the day, this was just a bit of fun as well to start with, and now it's become a bit bigger than a bit of fun. Because it's consistently every week. People now, yes, there might be only 100, 200, 300 people watching it, 400 people. We average about 300, 400 a week. Okay, right. Do you know what I mean? Like people are actually relying on me to listen to these things now, and it's getting a bit like, what is actually going on here? Do you understand what that means? A bit of a realisation phase. And after reflecting over the last 2 days after TT, it's like, wow. People are actually starting to really get behind this now.
I was quite interested. I was watching the video of... I think it might be on. Well, it might have been on both channels of when you were at Paramount having a
food reviews. I forgot about them as well.
Because again, that's something that's you hear. I've just had some friends move to the Isle of Man from. I suppose they were nomads, really, South African originally, and it's just like, where'd you go and eat? And it's just like you can obviously through your own experiences go here or here, but there's nowhere where you can really put them and go, well, just follow this guy and. Do a few reviews here and there, and
that's what that Dazzler app, who I'm working with at the moment, they're really trying to push on the Isle of Man, like a place where someone who's coming in on holiday. The whole point of the food reviews is to obviously help me gain another avenue of content and another branch on the tree. I like sort of using that analogy, branching off. Okay, different things grow here, there, and everywhere. But by linking with Dazzler, and I don't get paid by them at all. We do it as tick for tack. I help them push that forward because I like what they're doing. They've got a whole platform that has the majority of places on the Isle of Man in one place. So you can click on this app. Well, it's a website at the moment, but it will be an app. Click on this website, and it brings you to the website, obviously. And you can filter in. So if you want Manx produce and wheelchair access, you click those filters. Okay, this comes in, and I think that I genuinely believe that is a good cause, and that's why we decided to go out and try and, once again, with information of where things are, gains knowledge of what's going on. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? We're providing the information so people know about where there is to go on the Isle of Man and highlight some of the good places. And Paramount City, for example, and the Wetherspoons video, which the Wetherspoons one went crazy, but they're sort of on brand, if that makes sense. The Wetherspoon one, it was fresh open. Bang, let's get straight in there. Let's get straight in there and see what's going on. People know about it. It's going off. Let's see what's going on. Paramount. Okay, everyone knows who Milky Quail is, who's over for the TT. He is literally all over the Isle of Man. Visit Isle of Man are firing him out everywhere because he's pushing the Isle of Man, which is tremendous. Let's go there. It's on brand.
What's on brand? What do you see Percy's brand is?
Like as in not on, maybe on brand is the wrong word, but something that's.
No, I know exactly what you're saying, but I'm just interested when you see what you're doing, what you want to do. When you're mentioning brand, what do you see your brand is? And
my
brand? No. So you keep saying non-brands. Yeah, you as a person, what you wanting to do.
Yeah.
I'm just really interested in how you'd answer that. As in, what is Percy's brand?
Let me think about that for a minute. I was meaning like that's in the sense of they were like popular things that were going off on social media, and that was sort of like on brand, as in on. Popular, but what is Percy as about, man? That's not like.
It's not something you thought about.
It's something that maybe I've thought about more in the last 4 days.
Right. Post TT.
Since things have been going off for the food reviews and TT and being out in public a lot more, because I'm not someone who, since I started all this, I don't like going out. Well, I don't like going out. I would say that I try not to go out purely because I'm focused and trying to focus on what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. But being out and putting myself out there more so for a purpose rather than just making some fun videos on TikTok, actually putting myself out there. I'd say the brand is hopefully Percy's brand, man. You might have stumped me there. Hopefully someone who's positive about the Isle of Man and trying to make a change, I would say. And by the name of Watch the Skeet, it's like, what's going on? What's going on? So I have to be out there. I have to be out sort of seeing. That's a very good question. What's Percy's brand? Yeah, I'd say trying to be friendly, like real. If you see me walking down the street, come and say hello. I'm not some celebrity, you know what I mean? Just a guy from Ballabeg who has always been around farming and trying to be someone who people can come and talk to and have a yarn with if they like. And hopefully the Watch the Skeet brand can grow and we'll start releasing some T-shirts and stuff with some like funny Manx catchphrases on and things like that and try and put that sort of out there. Yeah. I think that the Isle of Man, hopefully I can be the person to help push the Isle of Man forward. I won't be the only person, but I can help. Absolutely. And make it more of a place where people can see what's going on here. Put us on the map a bit. We've been on the map in many different ways, but actually put us on the map. Mm-hmm. What is actually going on here on the map? And hopefully I can help in many different avenues. If anyone needs any help with anything, just give us a shout and I can try my best.
Right, but it's 8:10. It's well past my bedtime.
What time did we start at, by the way?
1 hour 48.
That's bananas.
So just maybe a part of message to let's if you don't mind to people around your age. And what message would you give to the younger generation? You being part of that younger generation.
Get off the couch and do something because no one's going to give it to you. And get up and get going because I'm 22 now. I can remember when I was 16, I felt like time was going dead slow, and the time does fly. And get up and start something. It's never too early. Get up and give it a go. Don't be scared of failing. Learn from the things you fail at. I'm sure I'm going to learn. I'm sure I'm going to fail much more. And hopefully I can keep learning from it. And I would say for anyone my age, you're young. You've got minimal responsibilities at 20, 21, 22, 23. Maybe you haven't got kids. You might not have a house. You might still living at home. You're in the perfect situation to have a crack at something. Because what's the worst that can happen? You end up back where you were, which you knew you could survive at. Like I knew I could, if everything goes wrong, I can go back to the person I was, or in the situation I was. Sorry, not the person, because I wouldn't say I've changed in that sense, but the situation I was, and survive there. Okay, rebuild again. That's the way I look at it. Fail. What have I learned from this situation? What have I learned from doing all this? Have a go. You're only going to learn. Yeah. It's not going to last forever. Like if you fail, just take a positive out of it, and let's move forward. Especially for the Isle of Man. I think my generation on the Isle of Man can really make a difference, and we're the future. We are the future. 22, 23, 24-year-olds are the future of the Isle of Man, and we have to start working together to make it the place that we want it to be.
Yeah, it's an aging population here.
It's an aging population, and young people.
Sorry.
Yeah, but the young people have to just
too right.
Merge together. Okay, let's see what we can do.
Cool. All right.
Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate you coming in.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Good chat.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Over and out.
It's word out from Martin.
And word out from Matt.
Poor flimsy humans. Don't you wish you were flawless like me? A towering inferno of physical perfection?
I hate to pop your blimp-like ego, but you're not perfect.